10, I'm Dana Perino, along with Kimberly Guilfoyle, Juan Williams, Jesse Waters, and Tom Shalhoub. It's 5 o'clock in New York City, and this is The 5. President Trump finished out his first year at the White House today, putting pen to paper to seal his first big legislative victory, tax cuts for Americans. Listen.
The bottom line is this is the biggest tax cuts and reform in the history of our country. This is bigger than actually President Reagan's many years ago. I'm very honored by it. It's going to be a tremendous thing for the American people. This is a little picture of it. It fits nicely in the box. I said take it out of the box because people have to see. And all of this, everything in here, is really tremendous things for businesses, for people, for the middle class, for workers. Corporations are literally going wild over this, I think even beyond my expectations.
He called out Democrats again for opposing the bill, but he did project optimism that both sides will work together again in the new year.
I think the Democrats will really regret, the Democrats already regret it. You know, they have their typical thing, it's for the rich. They know that's not true. And they've been called out on it by the media, actually. But the Democrats very much regret it. They wanted to be a part of it, just doesn't work out. But I really do believe, and I said on social media today, I really do believe we're going to have a lot of bipartisan work done.
The president is now in Florida, where he will spend Christmas break. Kimberly, I'll go to you first. Yes. They certainly ended the year on a high note.
Absolutely, and you can tell he feels very happy about it. He was almost quite sweet about the press. He's like,
he was nice to them. He gave them the pens and everything.
Exactly, little gifts, parting gifts for an awesome year.
And he loves the crew guys.
Yeah, and I thought it was very positive because he really wanted to get this done. I think he feels like, okay, we've got 4 tires on the car now. Like we know how to drive it. We're pointing in the right direction. We know how to work cooperatively together in terms of, a variety of different constituents within the Republican Party. And I think he feels like he's kind of coasting now, headed in the right direction, and he might be able to get some of the other things done that he wanted. I mean, besides, tax reform, he's obviously very bold on immigration. He's got good economy numbers. And then, of course, ISIS, he's doing fantastic as it relates to national security.
Well, and he has, Jesse, a better relationship now with the leaders on the Hill, McConnell and Ryan. He couldn't spend enough time talking about how good they are.
Yeah, no one saw that coming. A couple months back, they asked Mitch McConnell if he likes the president's tweeting, and he goes, this week, I just started to like it. Because he said a lot of nice things about it. I mean, you get tax cuts, you get judges, you have ISIS, and the economy's roaring. And, it's been a great year. And now all these companies are giving $1,000 bonus checks to their employees, a bunch of them. You have Wells Fargo raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour, and Boeing is going to invest $300 million in their employees. So that's good. But there's obviously a huge risk going into the midterms. And then a phrase, Speaker Pelosi, should send chills up the president's spine. The House, I think, is a real risk, and they have to spend a lot of money. But you know what? Republicans have a lot of money. They raised $10 million in October, $42 million cash on hand. The DNC only has $5 million cash on hand, so they're in a lot of trouble. If they think it's going to be a wave with that money, it's going to be a trickle.
But President Trump, Juan, proved you don't need to spend the most money in order to win. But do you agree with him that the Democrats are already regretting their vote on tax reform?
No, that's more, Trump talk and Trump boastfulness and the Trump bubble. I mean, he just has no idea what's going on out there. It's incredible because even today, when he had people coming in and he's talking to people who were formerly aides like Corey Lewandowski and Reince Priebus, and they're telling him quite plainly that 2018 looks like it's going to be not just a wave, but a tidal wave, and he has to watch out. So he's talking about rejiggering people inside the White House to better prepare himself. And the question is, who will he bring in and what changes will be made? Because you've got a number of people, including Dina Powell, for example, leaving the White House, people walking out. So the question is, who stays and what do they do to try to gird themselves? But I think with regard to the tax plan, I mean, all he has to do is look at the polls.
Well, I think that he has an advantage, Tom, in that it's not the RNC necessarily that needs to spend the money, but you have other entities willing to help to go out and sell tax reform because their job isn't done. They have to go out and remind people over and over again that this is a good thing, and they're hoping that the economics will bear out and that those poll numbers start to change.
Yes, and I think the average American, when they start to see the tax cut, I think it's going to resonate with them, and I don't think this tax cut for the rich is going to work. I think that this Donald Trump, behind the desk, just winging it with the reporters, this is the approach. If I was his communications director, I would say, you've got to do everything this way. There's rally.
You don't like it in front of the helicopter where you can't hear him?
No, he's got he tries different things. So you got the rally Trump. The base loves rally Trump. The establishment loves teleprompter Trump. They want him to be on the they want him to be scripted. This unscripted. I
don't think you're right on that.
I think this is the way to go.
Wrong. I think you're wrong.
You know who called me today?
I'm trying to be like somebody on the 5.
You know who called me today? My father-in-law called me.
How interesting.
My father-in-law called me today, and he said, "Did you watch President Trump?" My father-in-law, the great American, Tony Belvedere, he's watching truck driver, Teamster. He watched Trump today, and he was very impressed with him. And I think the average American, they like to see this laid back.
Well, it looks like you're in charge when you're able to just riff a little bit like that, right, Kimberly? So he's able to, he did take a few questions from the press.
Yeah, well, he's just very comfortable in his own skin. He loves it. He thinks it's magnificent, right? I mean, he really enjoys being Donald Trump. He enjoys being President Trump, the deal maker. He likes to be able to give people compliments and love them. You know, that's why he was happy today. They said, oh, we give McConnell some compliments, sprinkle some sugar, a little love sandwich on Paul Ryan. That's fine. He's happy when he's the giving tree, okay?
If he was so comfortable, he would have had a press conference.
Oh, my goodness.
He didn't have a press conference because he's so worried, in fact, that there's so much going on that people would actually ask him tough questions and maybe get him off of that relaxed thing that Tom Shalhoub.
I don't think the president's afraid of getting tough questions, Juan. The president, I think when he was running for president, did every single interview that he ever possibly could. So he's not afraid. And he relishes sometimes going out there and manhandling the press. I think the concern was, instead of asking legitimate questions about policy, they were going to ask him ridiculous questions that was going to get him off topic about Russia. No. And I don't think they wanted to send him to Mar-a-Lago in a bad mood.
Right, but I don't think that was the issue, Jesse. I think the issue was if you start saying to people, hey, how come so much of this goes to the rich? And you had promised as a populist candidate that you were going to work out something for Mr. and Mrs. Average America.
He's going to have to sell the plan. Well, he said he wasn't going to have to, and he went like this, which was funny, but he will have to sell the plan. I think that was Omarosa's job to go out and build those coalitions.
No.
So now we don't have Omarosa. We're going to have someone in there to, like you said, sell the plan if it's not that popular.
In fact, that's part of what they were complaining about to him today. He doesn't have a successful public liaison office. But this is a difficult thing to sell because it's so contradictory that even when you do party politics as sport, the Republicans over here, Democrats over here, what you see is Republicans are saying, and independents especially, this tax plan stinks.
Every payday, I would get out there and I'd say, look at your paycheck, or if it's direct deposit, go online and look at it. You're welcome, and there's more where that came from.
Look at growing income inequality. Look at pass-throughs that allow the rich to structure their income so that they don't have to pay the same tax rate as working people. This is an outrage.
If you want to pay more taxes, check that box.
No,
you
what
can
do you mean?
That on your return.
What are you talking about? Nobody wants to pay more taxes.
You're not paying enough.
The
you can do it yourself.
The idea is that he had promised that working class, middle class people were going to get the lion's share of this. Instead, now he says the real benefit of this plan was reducing tax rates on corporations, Jesse.
And what did the corporations do? They showered their workers with $1,000 bonuses.
Where is this? I'm waiting to see it.
Look at AT&T. Look at Comcast.
You see a few companies and you say that's the rule?
100,000 workers at Comcast get a $1,000 bonus check. I think that's pretty good.
Yeah. Well, now he's back to get out of here.
Get out of here. Well, I'm all for it, by the way. My son's there, so I hope your dad's right here, son.
Yeah, buy your dad a present.
But, Kimberly, they did have this meeting with the president about 2018, and apparently, it's high stakes because you want to be able to try to defy the odds. History shows that usually a president loses seats in the first midterm. That is a normal thing. They just don't have that many seats. And one of the guys I was talking to today said that the 12 Republicans who voted against tax reform, because their constituents are so mad that their taxes are going up, that those seats are quite vulnerable. And if you win those 12, you are halfway to taking back the majority.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's risky business, and that's why it was so important and pivotal. But maybe those constituents should have thought about that in terms of supporting, the tax bill, which really was quite,
no, but they didn't support it because their constituents said they don't like it.
Well, but nevertheless, now let's see if they're able to then get, reelected. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But the problem is there isn't enough padding. There isn't enough kind of room there to be able to give up few seats here and there because it's already too close of a margin. However, let's see how this does in the beginning of the year, what else he's able to accomplish that can help buoy it into the midterm elections to give him some positive momentum. And the other thing is, don't forget, the campaigner in chief, and that Donald Trump is very good at getting out there and really boosting enthusiasm and turnout. And I'm sure he's going to do that because he may lay awake.
Well,
at
today,
that's
let me just throw in something here, which is today. He said, hey, the Democrats will work with me when it comes to infrastructure. And I immediately thought, but Mr. President, where's the money? Because what you've done here is you've created this huge deficit, right? And there's no added revenue. So Democrats will then say, but Mr. President, unless you want to change your tax plan to provide the money, how can we work with you
raising taxes again?
No.
They're the ones floating a gas tax.
Well, look, also, losing a couple of seats isn't bad for a presidency. It worked wonders for Bill Clinton's career because he lost a lot of seats. Remember the contract with America?
Then he got impeached.
But he sailed to
I didn't say it.
Well, that just is what happened. I mean, but they could run on welfare reform and other things. I mean, they benefited from Republican ideas.
Yeah, but don't you agree that sometimes losing seats, it changes the presidency, but it's not necessarily bad for a president's re-election prospects?
Well, if they bring in Crime Chuck and Nancy, then maybe he could make a deal and triangulate like he did in August and September. I looked at the map. The Democrats in the Senate, they are defending 26 seats.
No, 24.
24, 26, and the Republicans are only defending like 4 or 5. So, and it looks like the most vulnerable Republicans, Jeff Flake, the next most vulnerable, they're all Democrats. Yep. And so I think if the president goes to a Montana or a South Dakota, or excuse me, North Dakota, and does some rallies and throws a lot of cash
But here's the thing, like in North Dakota, the Republicans don't even have a candidate yet.
That's the other thing. And you don't want to nominate a candidate like Roy Moore that's going to flame out. So you got to get sturdy
candidates. By the way, didn't he go?
Jesse, you better move.
Well, I mean, even Steve Bannon apparently is trying to primary John Barrasso, the senator from Wyoming. That would not be a good idea.
So there, I mean,
for the Republicans.
Now that's you guys have to deal with that, but you still have the Civil War raging inside the party, and Bannon is still a player.
I actually think that, and that's why I disagree, and that's why I don't think that establishment Republicans want him just to be scripted. I think what they wanted was for him to work cooperatively with them in order to help get his agenda passed, which was what happened on tax reform. And Paul Ryan said, we learned the lesson on health care reform and the things that we did that didn't go well. What happened this time is when you have the president as the head coach, and he brings everyone in the locker room. He's like, okay, you guys go out on the field, you work out the details, and we're going to come back here and huddle, and then we're going to sign this bill. We're going to take it across the goal line.
Excellent. Line, you got that.
I know. I was
so proud of you.
It was like being on a high wire without a net. Doing a sports metaphor there, but I think I nailed it.
Yeah, no. I think you spiked it, Dana. You spiked it.
All right, we'll move on. Comedian Dave Chappelle takes aim at Trump's reporters in a new TV special. See it when the 5 returns.